for joining us on Savvy Senior Sources, Talking with Experts. Let's take a moment and hear from our sponsors, GWG Life and Reverse Mortgages SIDAC.
What is the secondary market for life insurance? The secondary market for life insurance is an emerging financial market that provides individuals options with their policies. These options allow policyholders to benefit from the value of their life insurance. Policies are sometimes a financial burden, especially for seniors, as premiums often increase over time. The secondary market offers financial alternatives that can help policyholders benefit from their life insurance now.
Hi, I'm Beth Paterson, a certified reverse mortgage professional with Reverse Mortgages SIDAC. Bob's wife passed away, meaning his Social Security income was cut in half. His financial advisor suggested he look into a reverse mortgage. With the reverse mortgage, he was able to take a dream vacation with his nephew, and oh, the stories that they can share. After Bob passed away, his niece shared the difference that it made to the whole family. Dorothy did the reverse mortgage in order to protect her other retirement funds. With her line of credit, she was able to travel, buy a new car, and do home repairs. Years later, she's still benefiting from the reverse mortgage line of credit and not having to rely on her children. For more information on how you too can have security, independence, dignity, and control, contact us. Hi, welcome to Savvy Senior Sources, Talking with Experts. Savvy Senior Sources provides resources from A to V for seniors, boomers, their caregivers, and their advisors. In addition to the TV shows, we publish a resource guide, Savvy Senior Sources Guide. To learn more about resources, visit our website, savvyseniorsources.com. You'll find the experts listed in the guide as well as additional information. I'm Beth Paterson, the host of the show, and with the founder and owner of Savvy Senior Sources and also with Reverse Mortgages SIDAC. I'd like to take a moment to say thank you to our sponsors, GWG Life and Reverse Mortgages SIDAC. I'd like to welcome my co-host today, Marci Holley from Minneapolis Public Housing. Thanks for being here, Marci.
Thanks for having me, Beth.
And now I'd like to welcome our guest, Laura Zdychnec. And you've got that catchy last name in there.
Yes.
You are an attorney with Long Reher Hanson, and today we're going to be talking about issues that people should be discussing as they age. So welcome for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Some of the things are starting at the beginning.
Starting at the beginning, we kind of organize discussions with families about where do you begin to even think about planning? And for most of us, that starts with getting organized, and we're all guilty of that. So the idea of identifying where are your important documents, where's the deed to your house, locating any estate planning documents that you've done, finding your insurance policies, pulling all that information together is really critical before you can plan.
I can tell you from experience, my mother just had surgery and the bottom kind of fell out and she ended up in ICU, and we were scrambling to find all of that. We had no idea where any of it was. We weren't prepared. We had no power of attorney, and it's something that's very important for families to do before something like this happens.
Right, and you're not at all unusual. I think probably the vast majority of our clients, they are reacting to a crisis. Most of them haven't sat down and had these conversations and done their planning ahead of time.
And when you do the planning ahead of time, you have more choices and options than you do when you wait to the last minute,
yes,
as you found out.
Mm-hmm.
So, any other things you want to highlight on that and getting organized?
Getting organized, Other than locating your documents, the other thing we encourage people to do is to make lists. We're big list makers. So identifying what their assets are, which might seem self-evident, but really focus on identifying how are things owned. Who's on the title? Is it joint or is it just in one person's name? Are there beneficiaries designated, and what's the value of that asset? That can really help too to identify what direction do we need to go in the planning.
Okay. And another one is advanced planning for disability and incapacity.
Yes, yeah. A large part of our business, of our practice, deals with preparing people for the potential for incapacity or disability. And the truth is, everybody over the age of 18 ought to think about those things, but most people don't unless they've suddenly had a diagnosis or they've gone in for surgery. And all of a sudden, you know, the need is very critical and very present. But for that kind of advanced planning, essentially what we're talking about is figuring out what is the best way to have a surrogate decision maker in place and empowered to help you with either financial decision making or with healthcare decisions.
Okay. And speaking of financial matters, expand on that.
Okay. There are a number of ways that someone can have legal authority to act on your behalf, and there isn't a one-size-fits-all. So everybody's situation is a little bit different. Some of the examples include, for a very simple situation, it might be as simple as having online banking privileges and having perhaps an adult child or someone else in the family who's got access to that and can take care of bill paying. Setting up a representative payee to receive Social Security benefits on behalf of someone else. Those things don't cost anything and they're fairly simple, but obviously they're also very limited. We work a lot with powers of attorney, which are a critical tool, and again, something in our opinion everybody over 18 should have. Powers of attorney can give authority to someone in any variety of circumstances. People may choose to establish trusts, depending on their circumstances, and if no planning is in place, but someone needs to be able to manage an asset or to pay bills, then they're looking at a conservatorship. So for the most part, planning ahead helps keep you out of that system because that's very costly and intrusive.
Yeah, and then you also lose some choices with
Exactly.
that also.
So is the power of attorney kind of a catch-all for families? I mean, would that be a really good place to start?
The power of attorney is probably the one that everybody should have.
Okay.
Yes. And there are a number of forms that are available under Minnesota law. There's a statutory short form power of attorney that is very useful for most routine transactions, but we also, for most of our clients, we're also doing a more extensive power called a common law power of attorney that fills some of the gaps that the short form does not do. So having that power of attorney, like say it establishes someone else with legal authority, because obviously you don't want someone with the ability to go in and manage your bank account unless you've authorized them to do that.
Would you then need a healthcare directive too, or would the person with the power of attorney be able to make those decisions without a healthcare directive?
No, they're two completely separate things. And so the power of attorney is for financial affairs. And one of the things that I stress to people is that a short form power of attorney is effective as soon as you sign it. Mm-hmm. So it's really critical that people choose someone that they trust implicitly to put in that role. For healthcare decisions, generally a healthcare directive only gives authority to someone else if or when the doctor has determined that you're no longer able to participate in decision making. Healthcare decisions are so personal that we don't give up that authority unless it's really necessary for someone else to make a decision.
Okay.
And I want to go back to the power of attorney. Working with reverse mortgages, there comes a time when we do need a power. The person is not able to make financial decisions or physically not capable of signing. And we in the industry, the reverse mortgage industry, have a strict requirement. HUD requires it that if we're using a power of attorney, we need a letter from the doctor saying that they're not capable of making those decisions. When that power of attorney was put in place can come into factors therein, because if you just put it in a month before and now the person is not able to make decisions, HUD, the underwriters, are looking very closely at, is this a power of attorney that's going to be trying to take advantage in,
Right.
what was the mental state of the person when they signed the documents. So my recommendation is, don't just go to the store and get the form that says power of attorney and have anybody notarize it. Use an attorney to do it, because we then can go back to the attorney and get a letter and say, no, they were competent when they made this, even if it was just a month before.
Right.
So we can utilize it. So I always encourage people and think it's a good idea to utilize an attorney to do the paperwork, not just online.
What I frequently tell people in community settings is you can find a statutory short form available any number of places. That doesn't mean it's a good idea to try to do it yourself, because there's a lot that goes into the various choices that you make under even just the statutory short form, and the risks of not understanding what you're signing, not understanding what kind of authority that you're giving up, what the implications of that are, and the risk of financial exploitation, which unfortunately we're seeing a great deal of.
And we run across that, and that's why I always say it's important to utilize. And living options, let's talk about that a little bit.
Living options we live in a different era than, for example, when my parents were my age, and when a senior or a person living with a disability needed long-term care services, we were pretty much restricted at that point to a nursing facility. Today's world is a completely different situation. So assisted living, residential care homes, there are memory care specific facilities, adult foster care facilities, nursing facilities. Some people may choose to move in with an adult child, or have an adult child move in with them if their care needs are such that they can no longer live independently. But having those conversations, and it's not easy to get your kids to talk about it, but helps you to identify what your future may look like, even if you haven't had a diagnosis, but to sort of sort through what are the options out there, and if the need arises, how would I want that to play out?
And again, it goes back to having the choices and the options versus the, in the crisis, making the decision.
Yeah, I would encourage everyone to please have the conversations, because you just never know what life's going to bring.
Yeah.
No. And that's true although we are an elder law firm, elder law is very misleading, because I have clients who are minor children. So we work with people of any age who may be dealing with a chronic illness or disability, and how to help them navigate the various obstacles that they're going to face in their living situation and in surrogate decision making and so forth.
And talk about estate planning a little bit.
Estate planning, a lot of these things that we discuss in terms of our top 10 issues overlap. So with estate planning, that's one of the documents, if they have them, they need to pull them out and look at them, because a lot of people, if they've done any planning at all, they don't remember what they did, or if they look at that document now, they don't understand what it is or how it works. So it is important as part of the planning process to pull those documents out, look through them, see, do they still fit your situation? Because life and family and finances all change over time. So it's important for them to understand what's there. If they don't have a plan, or if their plan needs to be reviewed or updated, again, they can be empowered by making that decision and getting those things implemented sooner rather than at the time of a crisis.
And let's go back and talk a little bit more about living options. You talked about the various staying in the home or the senior housing options. Sometimes I get the children who come and say, I'm just going to move mom to the assisted living because I don't want to have to take care of them anymore. That's where they need to go. I'm thinking of one woman in particular who said, I'm just going to move her because she's falling, and somebody will be at the assisted living if she falls out of bed at night. No.
There's so much that goes into that conversation. One of the big things, obviously, that we deal with on a daily basis is how are you going to pay for that? Because assisted living can, frankly, be as expensive and sometimes even more so than being in a nursing facility. Most of the times in an assisted living setting, people who are receiving services, if it's help with their medication or if they need assistance with the shower, those are a la carte services. So they're paying rent probably for several meals a day, maybe some light housekeeping, but all of those other care services are, you know, based on 15-minute components, so that those get added on. So it's important for people to understand what's that going to look like and what kind of costs are available. The other thing is if you've got someone who's a significant fall risk, if they're in an assisted living setting where they're behind a closed door, you know, they're in an apartment, essentially. So the likelihood that someone's going to be right there, I mean, someone will probably come and check, but nobody's going to be right there watching.
And that's why I was trying to tell this woman that if you want somebody there, you're going to pay 24-hour care for somebody to be there. It can be done in the home or in the senior housing. This woman really wanted the woman at risk of falling wanted to stay in her home. It was the daughter who just wanted it. And the senior housing, if somebody can afford it and the senior wants to go, they can be awesome. But don't just and force the parent to go there because you think it's going to make it easier for your life. It's not.
Well, and you raise a good point, so forgive me if I jump ahead to that, but fall risks is a huge thing. And there are a lot of studies out there that show that people who suffer a fall are more likely to have then a cognitive decline. And each fall can lead to additional physical problems. So identifying people who are at risk of that, perhaps putting them in touch with a private therapist, a physical therapist who can help them work on strength and balance training can make an enormous difference. Walk through the house, see what obstacles are there that might be a trigger for a fall. Do they have throw rugs on a hardwood floor? You know, what kinds of things there present an obstacle or hazard for them, and clearing that out so that we keep them as safe as possible.
And those are services that can come into the home. You know, you don't have to take your parents out anymore. So many people come to the home and do the PT and the therapy, occupational therapy, with the parent at home.
Exactly.
Let's talk about financing the different options. Something else that needs to be considered.
Oh, it absolutely does need to be considered, because the truth is, and everybody who encounters it knows this, but the cost of long-term care is just scary, and it's frightening for everybody. So people need to understand what are their options, what things are available to them, and identify those resources so that they know how that's going to work. What I find most interesting with people who come in and they really have very few choices, but once I explain to them what their options are, they feel empowered nonetheless, because then they know what they're dealing with, as opposed to, you know, let your imagination and your fear take over. So we look at making sure people understand the extreme limits of what Medicare will cover in a long-term care setting. If they have the ability to private pay, and for what period of time, and how would they access the funds to do that? What resources would they draw on to do that? In your business, looking at reverse mortgages to help people who are looking really to stay in their homes.
Another option is from our sponsor, GWG Life, converting the life insurance policies into cash. That can be used if they're in their home or if they're moving into senior housing. A reverse mortgage doesn't work if they're moving into senior housing, but the life settlement can.
Life settlements, so that they're looking at, you know, maybe they've got a life insurance policy that doesn't work the way they originally intended, and does it make sense for them to continue to pay premiums? And that can be a really good benefit for some people. Veterans benefits is a huge
and often
issue,
overlooked.
An often overlooked issue that we try to identify. If there's a veteran involved, either of a married couple, or a single person, we want to make sure we identify what benefits are they entitled to through either the Veterans Administration or the state of Minnesota. And then, of course, the big topic is Medicaid or medical assistance. which is the primary payer for most people because they don't have sufficient funds to pay for long-term care for a significant period of time.
And one of the other concerns about long-term care, and we're not talking about long-term care insurance, we're talking about long-term care and the needs, is government dollars aren't going to be there into the future as they have been. And that's why it's real important to plan ahead.
Right.
And we have another show where we're going to be talking about some of those issues also. In keeping on time, let's talk real briefly on avoiding crime, fraud, and exploitation.
Yeah, the sad truth is our seniors in particular are severely at risk, and they are targeted by scam artists all the time. They are at risk to people who should be on their side, whether it's a caregiver, a family member who may be taking advantage of them, or a neighbor who suddenly befriends them. So if you're the child talking to your parents, help them to understand the various risks that are out there and to identify those things so that they can avoid, losing their savings or their retirement plans to those situations.
And for resources, Savvy Senior Sources, we select the members and we provide them on the website as well as in the resource guide. So there's everything from A to V. So go to our website, SavvySeniorSources.com, to find out who some of those resources are. And I want to take a minute and have you talk a little bit more about Long Reher Hanson. And we mentioned elder law firm, but talk about the difference of elder law versus estate planning.
Yeah, elder law is really a niche practice. We do basic estate planning, obviously, wills and trusts and so forth, but our focus really is more holistic than that. So if someone comes in and they just want to get a will done, we're also going to talk to them about all the things that we've been discussing today. What if, or do you have a health situation, you or your spouse, or do you have a child with a disability, and let's look at how we're going to make your planning work for that situation. As I indicated, our clients range in age from minor children to I have one who's 104. They run the gamut. We are an all-woman firm, which is a fun place to work. And our focus really, like I say, is that holistic approach to people who are dealing with these kinds of issues.
Great. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Again, Laura Zdychnec from Long Reher Hanson, and their contact information is on the bottom of the screen. So be sure to reach out to them for answers to your questions. And I'd like to also say thank you to my guest co-host, Marci from Minneapolis Public Housing. And again, reminder to visit SavvySeniorSources.com for information on resources. And one last thank you to our sponsors for making the show possible, GWG Life and Reverse Mortgages SLIDAC. Thanks for joining us today.
Provide for your long-term care. Convert your life insurance towards payments for long-term care. If you are concerned about future health care, you can convert your life insurance to pay for home care or assisted living. Health problems can be stressful enough without the added burden of financial obligations. If you feel that you no longer need your life insurance policy, you may want to apply the value towards long-term care.
Hi, I'm Beth Paterson, a certified reverse mortgage professional with Reverse Mortgages SLIDAC. Mike and Carol decided that they needed a one-level home to fit their changing health needs. They used the reverse mortgage to purchase their new home instead of using conventional financing. This has benefited them greatly. Barbara decided to do a reverse mortgage to pay off her conventional loan that she was making monthly payments on. She had funds left in the line of credit after paying that off. And a year or so later, when she fell and broke her shoulder, she was able to tap those lines of credit to pay for her home care. As she said, she would have been up the creek without a paddle without the reverse mortgage. If you'd like information on how to receive security, independence, dignity, and control in your retirement years, contact us.